Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, welcome back, everybody. I'm Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Your Health podcast.
See, that was really good. So just so everybody knows, the pre-banter chat today, Ben was trying to coax me into doing the intro because it's going to be about personal trainers and what to expect from those types of things. And so he wanted me to do the opening. I'm like, man, but you do it so good. And he was having some confidence issues. I have that same mixer, by the way. I love this.
I know. I saw you drink it. I was like, I think I fancy one of those.
Yeah. So he did a great job there. So everybody give him a round of applause that's listening to the podcast today on the
I
intro.
wish I had the media button so I could actually artificial. Can I do that?
You can we'll try it. I didn't hear anything.
You can't hear?
No.
Okay, well, I can hear it. It's fine.
All right, well, as long as you can hear it. Hopefully
Anyway. So this week we're going to do something different.
Yeah, this week we're doing something a little bit different. I think we've covered a lot of great topics. We have a lot more to go, and we're going to be bringing some guests on here shortly as well. To give different perspectives and things like that. We also want to get some more women involved in this, obviously giving their perspectives of challenges and struggles that they face. I remember when I first started personal training with Ben, I think we had an individual, a woman, come on and talk about period cycles. I learned more about that than I ever thought I would know in my life, which is actually really interesting
to have.
It actually helped me out because you understand feelings and how how your body actually works from a cycle perspective. It was actually a really interesting discussion. I learned a lot about it. But no, this one is really dedicated around personal trainers and personal training in general. And the way that I like to equate personal trainers for is let's just say you're trying to learn something new, okay? And let's just say it's being an electrician. Do you go and start messing with wires? Is that a good idea? Or do you pick up a book and maybe learn it? That's probably not a great idea either, especially when you're messing with electricity. Or do you, call an electrician and learn from them, or go to school for being an electrician, or those types of things, right? And so, when you look at something that is so institutionally important from a pillar perspective in your health and longevity of life, getting help from somebody is not a bad thing. And getting somebody that can hold you account. There's a lot of benefits we'll get into, but holding accountable, the knowledge and understanding around nutrition, the ability to, change your body in a way that makes you successful, understanding your habits, understanding your hurdles, understanding your challenges, your injuries. There's a lot that goes into what I would consider a personal trainer. I think there's the good, the bad, and the ugly in personal training as well. Like any industry that you go to, let's just say it's the medical field, you find a horrible doctor. Okay, well, you go and you find a new doctor, right? There's bad personal trainers, there's good personal trainers, and there's everything in between. And, when we talk about my journey in personal trainers, I had hit a point of rock bottom, right? Where I had tried everything. I had read up on a lot of stuff. I read a lot. I studied as much as I could on my body, nutrition, everything else. I thought I was eating healthy. I thought I was doing the right things, to get to where I needed to. And, I was failing in all those different areas, whether it was diets that I was trying or, trying resistance training, but not being specific or not doing it appropriately or right. So, for me, I needed a mindset shift or change. And that's when I really, found Ben, and I've had a lot of success with Ben because, one of the things that I think I sent you that message the other day. So someone had asked me on Discord, hey, what does Ben provide? And this isn't a sales pitch for Ben. I'm just trying to explain how I became successful with this in hopes that other people can find success in this as well. I said, well, listen, if you need somebody that can plan what you eat on a regular basis as far as, your calories, your macronutrients around protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Somebody that you can text at, 10 o'clock at night and he'll respond back to you in 2 seconds. Someone that, when you're having shit days where you feel like you're not making any type of progress or accomplishments, he's there saying, dude, I can tell right now, look at this and look at this. Oh my gosh, pumping you up when you're failing. Someone that plans your workout routines based on your own schedule. Someone that works around your injuries. Someone that is there, that has created a community that you can talk to individuals with and motivate each other. These are the things that you're looking for in a personal trainer. And the guy that I was talking to responded back, and he's like, man, he's kind of like the LeBron James trainers of the physical fitness industry, because you get like everything basically packaged in it. So, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand with personal trainers, is that it's not just, hey, it's going to be your workout regiment. It's everything else that comes along with it that supports that habits that you're building to make that successful. So, Ben, I want to turn over to you and say, one, talk a little about your journey of getting to be a personal trainer, because I think your own struggles, made you who you are today, right? And then also, what you do when you start to talk to folks about, coming aboard, what to expect from a personal training experience, and kind of that onboarding process, and how you kind of make people successful throughout their journey, and talk about failures, like what makes people fail, on these journeys as well.
Okay, I'd like to caveat this by saying a conversation around other personal trainers is a very fine line for me. Other personal trainers piss me off no end, so I'm going to try and be as
PC,
as possible. There's just a lot of things in the industry as a whole that piss me off, and I think the underlying issue is it's so easy to go and get your qualification, and people see it as it's like adult education. You basically pay for the qualification. Whenever I did mine, there was people in the class that failed. So you fail, you go and sit with the instructor, they tell you the questions you failed on, give you the answers, and then you reset the test basically until you pass it. So I'm pretty sure I did my qualification over like a 6-week period, and you do that, and then all of a sudden people will then trust you with their health and their fitness and their well-being, because you have this I'm a PT badge all of a sudden, or you're wearing a fucking Under Armour quarter zip, and people like look up to you as if you're like the holy grail of health and fitness. And I think one of the biggest things with that is people take that, like coaches or PTs take that for granted, and it's something that I never did. That like if you're coming to me and you're trusting me with your health and your fitness and your well-being, they're not things to be taken lightly, and you need to sort of recognize that in a person, with coaching and with personal training and with programming, even just workouts. There's a lot of considerations that you need to take, and there's a lot of things you need to look into, because truth be told, you could really fuck someone up if you didn't go about it in the right way. And that's where I often see people or coaches fail, because they have these cookie cutter programs, and they look at you and be like, okay, right, you're a male, blah blah blah, you fit into this box, here's your workout, without even taking anything else into consideration. I think that's often where people go wrong. For me, my journey, so I have always only been coached online. I've never really been coached face to face. And I mean, full disclosure, I remember whenever I worked with JP, so at Trained by JP on all social media platforms. If you look him up,
I just bought some of his rice, by the way.
The cream of rice, the cream of rice is
yeah,
actually really good. Yeah, really, really good. So for me, he was training the best of the best at the time. Like it was, I mean, it'll probably coming on 8 years. Yeah, I think it'd be 8 years in February. And I was like, I mean, I want to be coached by the best. Like, I mean, I was a skinny guy, but he's coaching these fucking massive bodybuilders. And this guy, if you Google him right now, he is enormous. Like his goal is always to be the tallest or the biggest short person in the room. So he's a short guy, but he's wide. So anyway, long story short, he coached me for about a year. And I was like, this online coaching gig seems easy. Like all he does is send me an email every week, and I'm paying him X amount of money per month. Like, I want a bit of this. Like, I want the freedom. I have the sort of knowledge now that I want to be able to help people. For me, overcoming the shit show that I was in through just out partying and everything that came along with that life, and me being able to transition into focusing on myself and improving myself and my health and my fitness. I was like, if I can do it for myself, I can definitely help people. And I was like, online's the way to go, because I mean, I get to work with anyone in the world, blah, 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 blah. So I hated my job that I was in at the minute, or at the time. I actually was in London one weekend. It was June, I think, 2016, I'm going to say. And I remember coming out of on Oxford Street, and literally across the street from me, I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but literally across the street from me, there was a homeless guy, sleeping bag, begging for money, whatever, and just above him, spray painted on the wall, in silver spray paint, I remember it clear as day, it said, "Quit your day job." I was like, I mean, if there's ever a sign that I need, it's there in front of me. So I literally emailed there and then, I was like, look, blah, 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 haven't been happy, I'm not coming back, and then go back, and I was like, right, now's the time, I'll have the freedom to go back and study and do everything I need to do. Literally just quit my job, didn't have a plan. Obviously, it's all worked out, and that's fine. So I went, did my qualification, and I was like, oh shit, right, what now? So there's a lot of people who, in the industry, who think that you don't necessarily need to coach face-to-face to be an online coach, which may be the case, but for me, I wanted to learn more about people. I wanted to interact with people. I wanted to be able to see how they moved, see what they struggled with before I transitioned that into an online basis. Worked on the gym floor for probably 3.5 years. It was always the goal for me to move fully online after 5 years, which would have been December just past. I was obviously brought ahead of time due to global shit show. So after 3.5 years, I moved fully online, and here we are now, today.
When you talk about online
story
versus in person, what do you think are the big nuances there? For me, I was really nervous going with you being in the UK, right? Because, I'm like, well, whenever you think of a personal trainer, you have somebody there supporting your arms as you're going through and, doing all these movements. But one thing that I've realized is that whenever I have a form issue or, whatever, I literally just take a video of myself doing it and I send it to you, and then I get the feedback instantly. And honestly, I think that's been more successful for me than somebody being there, because I have to course correct myself. And those to me feel like they're more ingrained when I do that versus somebody telling me while I'm there going to do it, because I feel like, well, he's just going to tell me that every time, so I can just, do whatever, and then I'll course correct as I go through. So I was really nervous on the online stuff of hey, I don't have somebody in person, trying to beat my ass, at the gym or those types of things. But, I'll tell you, it's actually been more convenient for me being online than it has been not, because one, if you're a personal trainer that meets you at a gym, one, you're committed to that time, and my day is insane. So like sometimes I can't get to the gym at 12:30 or 1 o'clock or whatever. Like last night, I had just a really busy day. I had to go over to Binary Defense and have a meeting there. I had to, I got my hair cut, which is really important. But then I had like meetings all day long. They're just back to backs. And then as soon as I got done, I had to go take Morgan, my daughter, to, softball practice. And so I got home at like, 7 o'clock at night, and I went and got my lift in afterwards. Right. So, I think schedule wise, something with online, it makes it much easier for me. And I feel like I know you better than if we've never met. We're going to meet in March in person, but like the only thing I'm worried about is you're going to be a short guy. That would mess me up. That would mess me up. But I know you're 6 foot something, so we're good.
I like sometimes I move my desk like this, and I'm like, just so I look slightly taller.
If I met Ben and he was like 5'4", I'd be like, listen, man, we can't be friends anymore, But
no, I'm not. Thankfully, I'm not a short guy. Nothing against short people, but
when you got cardboard Ben, I was like, is he this short? Like,
I'm nearly sure that I specifically put my height in. Maybe they fucked it up somewhere along the line. But I'll be taller than cardboard Ben.
You'll be taller. Cardi B is the new Cardi Ben. But no, what's your perspective of online versus in person? From having gone from both of those, like, what are the benefits, pros, and cons?
So what I will say is, one-to-one is for a specific type of person, and online is for another type of person. There definitely is something for everything in that. If I speak about one-to-one first, the benefits of having somebody there one-to-one, it's actually almost what you're saying is the negative. That people, if they commit to a time, they will go. Whereas some people don't have, like, if they don't commit to a time and they're not there, they'll not necessarily go. And the other side of it as well is you can be a bit more hands-on. So I tend to find that people who are maybe just starting out, or maybe nervous about the gym, or anxious, or just don't want to be in that environment, when you are there with them, they feel a lot more comfortable because you're stood there beside them. So they feel like, nobody's watching them. They know what they're doing. They don't freak out about anything. So I definitely think that side of it definitely helps a lot of people. For me, from a selfish perspective, exactly what you're saying from a time standpoint, I'm not limited in terms of my time, or I'm not fixed in terms of my time. So the goal for me with business and with work was always to have the freedom. And now I have the freedom in terms of, like, I don't have anything really scheduled unless it's calls and whatever else, but I'm not fixed to specific times. Online, again, for me, thinking about it in a selfish perspective, it obviously allows me to work with people all over the world, which you don't get, standing face to face. So I get to speak to a lot more people. I had a couple of calls this morning with guys in Australia, as I said to you before. And it's actually funny that you have touched on this, because the guy asked me, he was like, so, is there anything that you sort of think that there's like roadblocks or friction whenever it comes to online versus one-to-one? And I think, truth be told, whenever I first started online, there probably were a lot of things that I needed to iron out. But obviously over time, as the sort of how I do things and how the business has developed, I've sort of ironed those out. So the biggest one is what you're saying, form and technique. And I can't hit this home enough. To anybody who's listening, who is a client of mine,
please listen to this. Please listen to this.
Please send me the videos, because even what I posted at the weekend, those 2 videos of a single arm dumbbell row and a seated row, you commented yourself and like, oh, I haven't really been doing those properly. And I'm like, this is why we need the videos. So the one thing that I was worried about was the form and technique. And obviously we have overcome that in terms of videos, and actually enjoy the videos, because I enjoy being able to pull them up the screen, pause, draw on them, albeit the lines are never straight, but I enjoy that part of what I do. The other side I was worried about whenever I moved online was the community aspect, because it was easier on the gym floor because people could see other people training with me. Everybody was wearing BC training hoodies. It was funny for me. I remember walking in the gym one day, and I think there were 6 of my clients there wearing BC training hoodies, and like 6 people in the one gym seemed like quite a lot. And I was like, fuck, I've really taken over this place. But from the community side of things, it was easy because generally people trained at the same time. So, if you had somebody in before or after, you sort of knew who it was, and they would train together and whatever else. And I always knew, as we spoke about before, that the community side of things was massive. Now, obviously, again, we've been able to do that with weekly group calls, which again is another byproduct of global shit show that we were sort of forced into. And now we have the weekly group calls, and I wouldn't miss them for the world. And then obviously we have what's branded as the family chat, which again, it's more active than ever. Obviously it's moved over to Discord and whatever else, so that we have that. In terms of
painfully moved over. There's Chris finally.
No, I think everybody.
No, I'm just saying Chris is the.
yeah, he did. He moaned about it. But yeah, in terms of like from a client perspective, the benefits, it's just a what do you need kind of thing. Do you need someone there standing? And this is where I get a bit like, I guess, on my high horse. I'm like, do you need someone standing there counting your reps beside you physically in the gym? Or do you need the accountability to go and get the stuff done, and then everything else that I will look at, from a check-in perspective and whatever else? I find that I have had more success with clients online than I did one-to-one, because whenever I was working one-to-one, it got to the stage where I wouldn't work with you unless I was seeing you at least twice a week. So I saw you twice a week, which is fine. And you do build a good relationship with people, because there's no other sort of place or time that you have an hour with just one person that there's no distractions. Nobody's on their phone. It's just about you and that other person. So you do build a good relationship with those people. But a lot of shit goes unnoticed whenever you're just in that situation. So we didn't have the same check-in procedure that we have now. So, I wasn't as on top of food. I wasn't as on top of sleep, nutrition, everything on top of it. So for me, I get a lot more, and you guys get a lot more from the online, the check-ins, and all the data that we look at.
I think it's, I want to hit 2 really important points there with what you said. One is, if you're the type of person that needs somebody there yelling and screaming at you, then in person probably makes sense, right? But if you're taking control of your habits and you're building your habits yourself, online is great, because it allows your flexibility of schedule. And, I'll tell you, I finally got my first incline bench press perfected after a year and a half of working with Ben, right? So, form and technique is extremely important as you go through it. And I want to emphasize, you do need somebody to go through that form and technique, because if you're not doing appropriate form and technique, one, you're not going to get the type of muscle contraction that you need in the isolation of that muscle group. But 2, you're probably going to hurt yourself pretty bad. And those are the 2 things that you really want to obviously ensure that you're doing from a muscle contraction perspective, as well as preventing injuries and working around injuries that you may have. So Ben knows me. I have a lower left back issue as well as a left shoulder issue. And we've been able to develop the training programs around those issues, right? Whether that's getting different types of equipment that I use. So I use a belt squat instead of doing, back squats or front squats. I do, have a Kabuki camber bar that allows me to do a neutral grip bench press versus a barbell bench press, which has completely alleviated the tension on my shoulders. So having somebody there that can help you navigate your own body, I think is really important. But the one piece I want to really hit on that Ben is very modest about is the tribe that is created with people and communities like that, especially online. So, the community that Ben has created is awesome because there are people that are going through similar experiences, right? Similar struggles. And there was a call that we had, I think it was like last week or the week before, it was the week before. And, everybody had shared their Christmas stories, right? And a lot of folks were like super strict, like I didn't do this, I didn't go over my calories, and I focused on this and I did that. And then you had folks that lost it a little bit, right? That went out and they felt like crap because they, enjoyed the holidays and everything else. And, we're all supportive there. But the best part about it was they got back up and they went right back into the good habits again. The whole purpose of this is to have more days where you have a better habit than bad habits. And, seeing them bounce back after, engorging themselves on food and enjoying the holiday festivities as we do, and coming back to that community that didn't judge them in any way or shame them in any way and was promoting them, saying, listen, we all do that. Like cool, you gained 3 pounds, but you've lost 20 in the past month. So, the past few months. So like, who cares? Like now go lose those 3 pounds and then lose 10 more, like that's what we do here, And so I think the community aspect of things can really make a big difference because you're sharing your experiences with others. And, it's funny because I see like Nigel and Jason and those guys, and they're going through the same things that I went through, and I can see it too. And they're just seeing the success and the benefits of the reward of what they're doing, day in, day out. Heath is another great example of that. Chris, obviously a great example, a number of folks on there, but they're seeing the benefits there. And I remember, seeing them when they first came in, they're like, I'm not seeing changes. I don't feel like I'm getting better. And I would say the same thing. I'm like, man, I'm not seeing changes. I don't feel like I'm getting better. And all of a sudden, like I look back at me too, I'm like, like I got muscles everywhere. It's like, so it's one of those things where I think, a supportive community where you have your struggles, but also, like Ben, like I text you, hey, I've had a really shit day, this and that or whatever. And you're like, dude, hey, it's a shit day. It's fine. Like let's make tomorrow a better day, or let's, focus on this, or why are you feeling like shit? You care about the success of everybody else, which I think can't be stated enough. Like if you find a personal trainer, they need to care about you. They need to care about your success. And they want, like, I feel like for you, like how I get competitive around my own self with training, I feel like you're competitive with yourself on how much you can push folks in the positive direction, and caring that way. That's a sign of your success equally, as your health and everything else is. So, maybe talk a little bit about why do you care about people first and foremost, and two, that interrelationship that you start to develop with folks over time, that become friends, with everything else, but you really develop those relationships to make them successful, I think, in their journey in this health fitness thing.
Yeah, there's 2 things I want to point out about the group that I really enjoy. And the first thing is there's obviously so many people from so many different places who do so many different things, but it's like none of that really matters whenever they're in the group. So there's business owners, there's, high flyers, there's whoever in the group, but all that's left at the door, and they're just there for one reason, and it's improve themselves from a health and fitness perspective. And I think that is a really cool aspect of it. The other thing as well is people being able to share their experience and share their perspective. So I try and touch on this quite a lot whenever I'm having initial coaching calls with people, that if you come to me with a question, I can give you my answer as a coach, but there's potentially 10 or 15 other people within the group or within the community that can give their real life, like, this is how I got over it as me, within the past couple of months. And exactly what you're saying. It's funny, I was talking to Chris, I think, about this a couple of weeks ago. Like, you can see people at different stages of their journey, and you sort of being further on in it can recognize the different stages. But it's almost like as new people come in, the people who've been in there for a couple of months sort of take that reign of like, oh, I know how you're going, I know how you're feeling, and you know this will happen, and you'll feel this for a couple of months, and blah blah blah, and they'll sort of talk it out, and it's good to sort of see that progression. So I think having people at different stages is definitely a cool part of the group and of the community as well. In terms of why I care about people, I think number one, and I mean full disclosure, I'm not a people person, which I know sounds ridiculous given the job that I do, but I'm not a people person on a whole. But whenever I become committed to a person who has come on board as a client, like I will do everything I can to make sure that person succeeds in whatever it is. And for me, it's knowing what the possibilities are whenever you take control of your life from a health and fitness perspective. And the best thing about my job and what I do is seeing people achieve things that they would never thought would be possible. Like there to me, there is no better feeling. So there's that alongside the improvement in terms of their health, whether that's, you know, the data that we're looking at, or whether that's what their doctors are saying, or whether that's, you know, literally life-changing things. So for me, if you invest in me from a financial perspective as your coach, I will literally invest in you in any way, shape or form that I can from a time perspective to make sure that you succeed in this journey. And I'm not a person that will work with every single person. Like if I don't get a good vibe for the person on the initial coaching call, I'll just say, look, I don't think it's a good fit. I can recommend people if you want. And I think they need to sort of be able to fit within the community. And I tend to get a pretty good feel with that with people straight off the bat. And for me, I guess the caring side of things is the coaches that I respect within the industry, and there's not many that I follow what they do because I feel like you can get a lot lost in your own coaching, but there's a handful that I do, and I look at them and what they do, and I'm like, that to me is a proper coach, and that to me is someone who actually gives a shit. And there's so many different levels of PT and coaching and whatever, but for me, I always try and go over and above, and I don't just look at, you know, here's your training, here's your nutrition, blah blah blah. I actually care about you guys as humans, and you know, really take the time to actually get to know and understand you. And you know, you're talking about the friendship that you build. Like one of my good friends, Jason was one of my first ever clients, and it'll be coming up to probably 5 years this month whenever he started coaching me. Obviously it was 1-to-1, and you know, nicest fucking guy you ever meet in your life. And I obviously built, you know, a lifelong friendship with him just from him coming on board as a client. But you build up this relationship and you have conversations that you don't necessarily have with other people. You know, you talk about injuries, you talk about struggles, and especially as men, we generally don't really talk about our struggles to other people. So having somebody that you can come to being like, oh, I'm struggling with this, and I can either relate or give you advice on it, you generally don't have those conversations in other places. So I think that's why you build such strong bonds and relationships with people.
Well, I think, you know, you'd mentioned the type of online personal trainers where you don't actually meet face to face, right? And I know, like, and this is not a knock on Jeff Nippert and those guys, but Nippert, you can go online and they have like their personal trainer, you know, thing, right? And they have their programs they have, but you also can hire Jeff Nippert as a personal trainer, which you never get to talk to him, I guarantee it. You know, it's one of those things where you probably have check-ins and things like that, but you're never face to face. So for me, you know, when I was looking at this journey of how do I become successful, I knew that I didn't know what I needed to know to be successful, right? I needed the tools to be able to build myself around this healthy lifestyle and habit. I needed somebody to teach me that, right? Very similarly to how you're taught how to be a computer programmer or how you're taught to learn business in school. You know, I needed somebody that had gone through this with other people and had success. So, you know, obviously success criteria is one piece of that, right? So have you had folks that you've had success with before in the past? And two, you know, would there be somebody there that I can learn off of to instill these principles into my day-to-day life to be successful with all this? And that's where I think the face-to-face really comes into place. And, you know, for me, the community aspects is the motivation, the ability for me to be able to reach out to you anytime is, you know, very good from a response perspective. If I have questions or I need something, you know, like where I'm checking form or things to that effect, you know, so, you know, all of those things combined, plus the system that you built, which, you know, you know, we don't talk a lot about, you know, the weekly check-ins and things to that effect, but I think that's important to say, you know, like how do we prove results, right? How do we prove that, you know, you are getting to your desired state, which takes time to get there, right? You know, this isn't something that, hey, you hire a personal trainer and then you have a shredded six-pack in 2 weeks. You know, this is something that takes time to build, you know, to get to a certain point to be able to develop this. And so I think, you know, maybe talk a little about the program behind it and why that's equally important from the relationship piece of it, but also the tracking. Because I think one of the biggest things that I really struggled with, especially earlier on, was, am I making progress? Is this actually working? I second guessed you many times. Like, he's fucking crazy because he wants me to eat, 2,500 calories. And why are we increasing calories when I want to lose weight? And why are we doing this and that? I'm like, does this guy even know what he's really doing? And, truth be told, you knew exactly what you were doing the entire time and how to get to that point. And, it's that leap of faith aspect that I think is really important. But the data also, you look historically back at the data, and, my initial perception, and this is, I think, everybody's perception, is I need to lose weight, right? Like, the scale is the Bible, right? And truth be told, if you want to get to what you want to look like from a desired perspective, the scale is not the Bible. Your body and how your body looks and how you feel is the truth, right? The scale lies to you all the time, and the reason why it lies to you is, you gain more muscle, it equates to more weight, which means that, hey, we dropped down to, 200 pounds or whatever, and I wasn't happy with what I looked. I want to look big, So how do we get to that point? Well, we have to go up in weight. So I'm 230 now, right? Or 226, I'll be in check-in. But, how do I get to the points where I want to continuously increase my muscle mass? Well, you have to put on pounds somewhere. Like, if you have more muscle, what does that mean? You're not going to magically stay at 200 pounds. So, you're a bigger boy, you eat more food, you get more muscle. That's how that works. So, I think the system behind that, and I remember so as part of the check-in, you have, your weekly photos. So you have a front and back that you typically have. And I remember I think I was 6 months in, and I said, man, I don't feel like I'm getting big, man. Like, I don't feel like I'm getting muscle. And you're like, listen, and you sent me that side by side. I'm like, look at Dave week 1 and look at Dave at 6 months. I'm like, oh shit. Like, that's a different person. That's only in 6 months. That's really, like, that's okay. I'm an idiot. But, like, talk a little about the process and the because it is a mind F quite a bit when we're going through this, because, like, it's counter of what we think, right? Because the initial, when you start with a personal trainer, you're expecting to hear, well, hey, you're going to eat, leaves and kale all day long. You're going to be doing, cardio 16 days a week. And you're going to have to sleep 8 hours, and then you're going to have to do this and 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 this diet and this and that. And we're going to eventually move to keto. Then we're going to switch to paleo. Then we're going to be a vegan, and then we're going to do this, right? And that's your perception of, like, this whole system. But, truth be told, your approach, obviously, which, is a really good one. And it's one that I think, a lot of folks can learn from, is, listen, resistance training to lose the weight, right? Some cardio in there, burn the calories, get yourself into a good, body position, then build from there. Right. And that's, I think, really the approach that is sustainable long term. If you want to drop 50 pounds in 3 weeks, well, you can eat dirt and grass all day long and do that, but it's not going to be sustainable, and you're going to feel like shit. You're going to look like shit afterwards, the whole skinny fat syndrome that you're looking at. But all of those things, I think, talk a little bit about the system, the approach, and, like, what people go through, during the initial phases of that. And plus the mind F that you go through as you start to change.
I would definitely, well, actually, one thing I will say, I think the community and the group has definitely been a game changer in terms of what you're talking about, thinking that I've lost the fucking plot, in terms of,
that's
people
true.
Going,
that's very true.
But he's increasing my, like, and you've seen it over time and time again, and people coming in and being like, I'm really not sure, like, I don't know. And, Jane, she's be like, I don't really trust you. And I'm like, I mean, right, this is kind of a fucked up relationship if you don't trust me. But yeah, I definitely think the group, because, someone will come to that problem and, 10 people will be like, no, I thought the same, just trust it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so for me, whenever I look at a client, and I'll always ask what they've done before and what they feel like they had success in, and blah, 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 blah. And the reason that I don't see what they had done before as successful, whether they lost weight or not, is because they've bounced back and they've now come to me. So to me, it was not a success. And what I try and do is find a way that I can fit this into their life that they can do long term. And just from experience and over time, the best way that I can do that is look at what they're doing now and just slightly improve it. I don't need to come in and just flip their whole life upside down, because it's too much change. People have other shit going on, work, family life. And for me to go and start fucking with all these things, it's not going to be good for anybody involved. So what I like to do is look at a lot of different data points and work on fine margins with each of them. So what I mean by that is, I'm not one that means that you have to overly restrict calories. It doesn't mean you do, as you said, 16 days of cardio a week. What we do is we put your calories in a good position that you're maybe in a slight deficit to begin with. We give you a step goal that's manageable and not too far from what you're doing at the minute. So if you come to me and you're only doing 2,000 steps, I'm not going to tell you need to do 10,000 steps the next day. We'll gradually build up to it. The same thing with cardio. We'll start with 40 minutes across the week or 60 minutes across the week. And we just use that as a start point, and then we refine week on week. We'll bring your calories either up or down depending on what way your body's responding, and the same with your steps and the same with your cardio. And the reason that I like doing those things is because it gives us room to play with. So it's not extremes one way or the other. I'll never make massive changes, as you said, and as we've seen before. And I think for me...
There's sometimes I wish you moved a little bit faster on calories, but it's okay. It's okay. It makes sense.
But the reason that I don't is because your body can't adapt that quickly. So if I went to you, okay, right, let's take 500 calories off, your body would be like, what the fuck?
No, it's 100% true. And I see that for sure, 100%.
Especially because you want to maintain muscle mass as well. So there's a fine line there that we need to just ride the wave. So yeah, from that, and then obviously, as I said before, I manage nutrition simply through my fitness pal, give a calorie goal and a protein goal. The reason that I don't look at fats and carbs is because I find myself, whenever I had those specific numbers, number one, I never hit them. I think I hit them exactly one time in my whole training career. And I found myself at night, like looking at, okay, I've got 3 grams of protein, I've got 6 grams of fat, and I've got 16 grams of carbs. And I was creating these fucking weird meals that I just didn't need to have. And we don't need to go that in depth. The flip side of that is, it gives me somewhere to go with someone if we hit a plateau. So, if we're only managing calories and protein to begin with, 6 months down the line, if I start to hit a plateau, it means that I have more tools to throw at it instead of being like, oh, well, that's all I know. Like I can't, that we just need to do more cardio, and then everybody starts to freak out. So that's what I look like from a nutrition perspective. As I said a million times over, if we need to go a bit more in depth in it and we need to sit down and build out a plan together, we can do that. But I find that just tracking and educating everybody about food is something that then they can be able to carry on with me. And I said this actually on the call earlier on, like my goal for anybody is to educate them to the point that they don't need to work with me anymore, which is a fucking stupid business model. But it definitely is something that, if you have the education that you continue to do this for the rest of your life, then that's to me what the whole thing's about. The training aspect is obviously, I've said before, it's managed through True Coach. For me, it just was the best software at the time to, make sure that you could see the videos of what you were doing. You could see the sets, the reps, the tempo, and the notes. It's based around what you have equipment-wise, what you have time-wise, and just whatever the goal is. As we've said a million times over, I tend to start in the same place with a lot of people unless give them full-body workouts, because given where they're at a start point, unless it needs to be something totally different, but you can get the most done in a shorter space of time across the week. Then the main part is the check-in sheet. And the check-in sheet, to be fair, has grown and grown and grown over time. It wasn't what it was. And you've seen it in the time working with me as well. And for me, it's just about data, and it's about having those data points. And the best thing about it is if you come to me and be like, haven't lost any weight this week, and go, right, okay, well, you've lost X amount of centimeters in your waist and your hips. We've also improved in X, Y, and Z. You've been sleeping better. Your stress levels are X, Y, and Z. So there's so many different aspects to this that we can look at. And it means that, we're not just looking at progress from one point. Yes, the scales will fuck you up because you can't trust them, but they still do play a part in what we're doing. And obviously I will still look at the data and look at the information. And the funny thing about it is, like, obviously when we started, you came to me because you wanted to lose weight. You're now 10 pounds heavier, I think, or 20 pounds heavier than when we first started. Yeah. 10 pounds heavier than when we first started. And over that time, what we had to do to go down and to come back up again. Yeah. And the thing about it is, like you said, there's no other, in my opinion, there's no other place that you have that much information or that much data that you can look back on. And because you're looking at yourself every single day, you will look and you'll be like, I haven't really made much progress. So then it's easy to just pull up pictures from 6 months ago, a year ago, 4 months ago, whatever it is, put them side by side and go, holy shit, that's me in both those pictures, and see the difference side by side. So for me, it's about having data, it's about having the information, and it means for me as a coach making changes that I can base it on the data and on the information rather than basing it on your emotion. So if you come to me with your check-in today and you're pissed off because of X, Y, and Z, that's going to come across in your check-in. And it would be easy for me to get caught up in that emotion and make changes just based on the emotion because you're feeling a certain way. Whereas if I can rationalize it with numbers and data, show you what it is, and be like, look at this, and this, we're going to stay as is. I really think for another week we'll be able to make progress based on what we're doing, and having the data and information is key to that rather than just going off emotion, because it can end up being a total shit show.
Well, I think there's two things that you hit right there too. Is I think if you're in a financial position to be able to have a personal trainer, that's important, right? Because not everybody has access to it. But even if you can do a personal trainer for a short period of time, whether that's 3 or 6 months, to help you kind of establish a baseline. One thing I'll say about me and why I continue on with a personal trainer, obviously you, Ben, is those comfort zone areas. For one, I learn something new every single day, whether that's a new lift or a new technique. Like you just introduced me to the 6x5s. So I mean, like different things of messing around. And so, I think the biggest thing for me is my comfort zone pieces, right? I would never be where I'm at today without having a personal trainer involved. Like there's no question. I would never have pushed myself up in weights. I would have tried to build muscle and try to be in a deficit and try to stay at 200 pounds. All of these things I think would be, something that I would really struggle with and taking me out of my comfort zone. And we've had those discussions before. I'm like, Ben, I don't think we're going in the right direction. You're like, we're going in the right direction. Don't worry. Like, I got this. I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. Like, all right, let's do this, and it's interesting is, I get on the scales, today and, I don't even care about the scale. Like, I don't like, I would like to see a couple pounds come off here or there, but at the end of the day, like, I was just a story from yesterday. I was at the gym yesterday and I was doing rack pulls and I noticed my total volume increasing. I noticed my muscles are larger. I noticed that when I take my shirt off, I look great. I noticed all of these different things that's exactly what I wanted to get out of this. And the scale to me is irrelevant. Like, if I gain 5 pounds, but I had 5 pounds of muscle, that's fucking awesome. Like I'll take that, right? If I'm 250 pounds and I'm just a sheer rock, that's great. So, I think, when the comfort zone aspect of things is something that I really struggled with, of pushing myself in those directions, because I never would have done it. I would have absolutely stayed in a caloric deficit, as long as I possibly could. Well, first of all, I wouldn't even know how to put myself in a caloric deficit without being obviously with you, or, the macronutrients or what I should be eating, what I shouldn't be eating. But, putting myself in a caloric deficit, and I would have stayed there forever, right? I would have stayed at, 2,300 calories probably for the rest of my life. And I probably would have been lean and had some muscle, but there's no way that I would have ever been able to continue on this journey the way that we have and to continue to grow the way that we have in such a short time too. I mean, you look at my transformation in a year and a half. I mean, that's a fucking great transformation in a year and a half. I'm nowhere near where I want to be at either. We got many more years to go on this stuff. So, it's
a point to note on that is, from my own personal experience, you never will be.
Yeah.
There is no like, okay, you'll maybe be leaner, but then you're like, oh, I want to be bigger. And then you get bigger and you're like, oh, I want to be leaner. And you go around this endless mind fuck that you're never happy with how you look. So you need to take the time and the points to recognize the progress that you have made from point A to point B, but also remember that the goalpost will always change. Do you know what I mean? So you'll get to the point that in your head now you think is the goal, and you'll be like, oh, I could just be maybe, 10 pounds more muscle or blah, 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 or whatever it is. And I've actually had this conversation a couple of times recently where people who are in the similar sort of phase that you were in terms of trying to bulk and put on muscle, that they get to a certain point and they're like, oh, I don't know, like I'm getting a bit too much body fat. I can't see my abs as much. I can't see the veins in my bottom abs, and they're freaking out. And this is something that I can relate to because I've been that person for so long. Yeah. And I'm like, look, one of my biggest things, not a regret, but if I could go back and change things, is flittering between those two, trying to get bigger and then thinking, oh shit, I'm too fat, and then trying to get leaner and being like, all right, I want to be bigger, like going back and forth between those. If I had have just committed to a year of trying to put on as much muscle as possible and then cut down, I could do the process much more gradual from that point. But I would always get to a certain point and be like, oh, I'm too, I'm carrying too much body fat, which is fucking ridiculous because I maybe had 4 abs instead of 6 abs. I grew up. But it's definitely, there's a lot of mental barriers now. And I know that's something that you have dealt with as well, in terms of, because of the weight and because of sort of where you came from. And then when the weight starts to go back up, there's that like, is this the fucking right thing to do? And you're like freaking the fuck out. And the other point that I would like to make on that is, you can't stay in a calorie deficit forever. And that's something that people don't realize, because your body will start to adapt to it, and your body will start to, like, on a very minute level, start to shut down different functions that it doesn't need to do. So I've talked about this before in terms of, like, if you're a person that fidgets, like you've seen me play about with this pen, if I wasn't eating as many calories, my body would just start to shut those things down automatically, and you would just move less, which means if I'm actually moving less, I'm not as animated whenever I'm talking.
Less calories.
I'm not burning as many calories. So then I need to eat less calories. So you need to get to a point where you're like, right, okay, I've maxed out this calorie deficit. And this is something I'm dealing with Chris as well. I was like, look, we've pushed this far enough. We need to start bringing calories back up. And then he's the same. He's like, but I wanted to get to this weight, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I know. So we started pushing calories back up, and he started fucking losing weight because he had more energy. He was more animated back. And it's that, like, this is literally the opposite of what I've known my entire life, but it's fucking working. So I'm just going to run with it. So that to me, those two things are hard things to overcome mentally for sure.
Well, I think some of it was a confidence issue in me too. So when we were pushing calories for when we were kind of bulking up a bit, trying to add as much muscle mass as possible, we got to the 3,000 calorie mark, right? Which, was a lot of food. I was a professional eater. But at the same time,
it's a psychological number too.
It is.
So if you were eating 2,900 calories, you were fine with it, and then all of a sudden, because it's
3,000,
it's like, fuck, it's so many,
so much. But the thing that was crazy, the thing that I was concerned with about that with myself was, wait, was it 3,000 or 4,000 calories?
Well, we got the 3,000, then we got the 4,000.
Yeah. So we hit 4,000 eventually. Yeah. So I hit 4,000 eventually. Which is crazy. Like I was eating all the time. But, like when we got to that point where we're eating 4,000 calories, like my biggest concern was mentally I'd turn back into Fat Dave again, right? Because I was consuming so much food. Would I have the constraints and control to be able to shrink that food down again to get to a perspective of where I'm at? And we've obviously had a lot of success with that because, and it was actually a little bit of a struggle, and not from a sense of I couldn't do it. It's just, your body gets used to eating 4,000 calories. And then you're eating like 3,500 calories. Then you're eating like 3,000 calories. Then you're eating like, and this is gradual over many months, but now you're at, 2,700 calories. But that gradual approach actually has helped out so much because, when you shave 100 calories, I don't notice it at all. Like I don't feel it at all. But I'll tell you, when I was eating 4,000 calories, the amount of energy that you have with 4,000 calories, like you can do anything in this world with 4,000 calories. But with the shrinking of 2,700 calories, my workout routines are 100% spot on. I'm hitting new PRs. I'm increasing mass. Total volume is increasing. I'm killing it at Orange Theory. So, it's just this ebbs and flows of your body. But the biggest sticking point for me was, could I go back to, maintenance or caloric deficit without, a massive struggle and fight with my internal Fat Dave self that I've traditionally had in the past. And building those habits out and gradually doing it slowly and gradually tapering it back has worked wonders for me to be able to get through those barriers and hurdles in my own mind. So I have confidence in myself that, if we did a year bulking phase, I would go back to, not bulking and fine, no issue whatsoever, right? I have the confidence in myself to be able to do that. Now, I like what you said the other day. I sent you that picture, of where I was at, like from a lean perspective. And you said, we can pretty much maintain this type of look, consistently throughout the year, while continuing to build muscle mass, which I really liked a lot. So, I'm at a good state right now where I really like, the gains that I'm getting muscle wise, as well as, the calories and the food that I'm able to eat. The other day I just had 2 sloppy Joe, big meat things. It's so tough cutting, but you were
on the call on Monday and you're like, it's so hard only eating 2,700 calories. I'm like, people are working up to that shit. You're like, oh my god, my poverty calories. I think the point to note about me saying, where we're at is a good point. And I've said this a couple of times, for me, I always like to be in a point where I'm like, 8 to 10 weeks out from being totally shredded. So if I decided today, right, I want to do a photo shoot in 10 weeks, I know that I could do everything I needed to get there, but it wouldn't be too challenging. And that to me is a sort of, not that I want to do photo shoots all the time, but to get super lean or if I only go on holiday or whatever. That to me is a good sort of position to be in. And I think one thing that's not spoken about often enough is maintenance, because everybody is always trying to get leaner or trying to bulk up. Nobody's like just trying to maintain where they're at now. As I said to you, the level that we're doing now, yes, albeit it is quite a high level, but it's because you enjoy the things that you're doing. So the training that you're doing, the cardio that you're doing, and the food you're eating, it's not a challenge yet. So it's not a challenge yet for you to really push calories, or you're not really struggling from a food perspective.
Yeah.
So if we just decided, look, we need to put a pause on this. We need to just maintain at this level. You could do it, and yes, you would still make progress, albeit it would be slower in whatever direction that you were going. But the way that you are at the minute in terms of lean upper body and muscular, and still lean through, where your abs are coming out, you could live like that day to day. And that's why I always think about the longevity of this and doing something that's sustainable and something that's long term.
Yeah, and even days that I have like non-training days, for
once a week,
once a week, but it's 2,300 calories, right? And I have no issues hitting that, at all. Now, I don't think I would be able to have the same level of energy that I would have, on training days, which is why we keep the calories a little bit higher there. But I have no issues hitting, 2,400 calories, a day without, I don't feel like I'm immensely starving or things like that. And feeling hungry is fine. Like I don't mind feeling hungry. The starving aspect is, like, oh man, I need to eat something. My body's actually asking for it. I think it's the difference, that you circle in your body is, is this my habit asking me to eat because I feel like I need to eat to fill myself up, or is this my body asking me, listen, I need more right now in order for me to be able to do what you want me to do? And those are two distinct feelings.
Yes, it's psychological hunger versus actual physical hunger. So psychological, if you've had lunch at the same time every day for the past 35 years, at lunchtime you're going to feel hungry because your body's like, oh well, I need to eat, I need to eat food because it's lunchtime. Whereas that feeling actually versus being actually hungry is an entirely different feeling. So being able to recognize and separate the two, I think, is an important one as well. And that's the fasting conversation that we can go into a different time.
Yeah, and that's again, we'll talk about fasting. We've talked about it a few times in the thing, but some great benefits for that, for your body to clean up and those types of things. Not from a diet perspective. I don't recommend it as a mechanism for diet, but the benefits you get for time windowing.
Well, you said a couple of weeks ago, and I was kind of proud because you said windowed eating, and I was like, he's not saying it.
I did. I was going to say window eating. I was just going to say that.
Exactly. Yeah. So
food
having
windows.
that, even changing that perspective, because the internet tells us that intermittent fasting is the only way to go. And actually, full disclosure, I saw somebody I follow on Instagram talk about how intermittent fasting is the be all and end all, and you have to do it to lose weight and blah, 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 blah. And it fucked me off no end, because it's a person that I know well. It could have just come to me and spoke to me about advice, but they're doing this fucking intermittent fasting, but whatever. It actually poked the bear enough that I did a rant about it on Instagram. But anyway, because it's labeled as a diet, and it seems to be the only way, detaching from that and just talking about windowed eating in terms of I just eat between this time and this time. Yeah, it doesn't need to be labeled as a diet as such.
No, it's a framework. Right? It just has counting calories and everything else is right. And I think for me, my window eating is between 8 p.m. and 10 a.m. So I try not. It's not 100% every time, but I try. So 8 p.m. I'm done eating. 10 a.m. I start eating again, and that window is good enough for me to get a decent fasting state and for my body to kind of clean itself up. And is it as extreme as the 4-hour windows, which there's some studies that show the 4-hour eating windows are detrimental to your health on that side. So you want to definitely kind of keep it there, but it's not, it's a framework that you can live by that supports your lifestyle. That is something that you're doing to optimize yourself. Right. And the only reason I'm doing intermittent fasting is to optimize myself. It's not because I'm scared that I'm going to eat too much after 8 o'clock at night. I feel better when I have a little bit of time of where my body has time to digestive wise, everything else to kind of recoup and to clean itself up and to be mentally alert. Like I feel when I do Orange Theory, I do it on a fasted stomach, and I do it and it feels great. I love doing cardio on a fasted stomach. Training, I prefer to eat beforehand with resistance training for that energy expenditure. But these are all things that I think you can accomplish, and it's not going through those. But the last thing I want to hit on, on this before we close the podcast out is if you were going to go to a personal trainer, what are the top 5 things that you would look for in a trainer? I know we've covered some of these in the podcast, but what would you look for in a trainer for success? Not
in any particular order, but definitely if they actually live the life themselves. And I'm not saying that all coaches or personal trainers need to be shredded all year round. I'm not saying that in any way, shape or form, but I definitely think that they need to have been through some sort of journey, transformation, or as Robert said in the call the other day, training adventure. I think I like that one better than journey. To show that they actually can understand what it is like the mental barriers that come along with it, like the physical changes, all those sorts of things. As I said, I'm not expecting coaches or trainers to be run about shredded all year round, but I definitely think someone who looks after themselves and actually lives and breathes the things that they say, because they need to believe in it in themselves. The other thing is, referrals or testimonials. I don't think it necessarily needs to be transformations. And this is something I've actually tried to stay away from as much as possible as a coach. Yes, by all means, whenever you share it, I'll reshare it. But I'm not in the business of putting up two pictures beside each other to try and, make a sale or whatever it is. It's your journey and it's yours to share. It's not about me and it's not about that. But if you can have, testimonials or people or reviews or whatever it is backing up the person, the service, then I think that's definitely a good go-to. Getting a bit of an understanding about them as a person. So I think one of the best things about this podcast is it's giving people an understanding as me as a human versus, reading Twitter or reading Instagram or reading it.
Yeah.
Like, you can get my personality more because I'm having a conversation, and I speak to people all the time. Like, it's so funny actually talking to you because you're the same on the podcast as you are now having this conversation. And I think getting to know the person as a person is definitely a big one as well, because you need to be in line with that person or it's just never going to work. The other thing would be, I guess, their style of training, because there's so many different ways to look at training now. Do they come from a bodybuilding background? Is it like CrossFit, WOD style stuff? Is it cardio based? Is it specific to your goal? So if you want to run a marathon, you're not going to go to a bodybuilding coach for that. So it needs to be someone who's in line with that as well. And I think the biggest one probably is somebody who actually gives a shit. And I always remember the gym that I went to before the gym that I worked in. So they're both Gymco. One was Infinity and one was in Cityside, which is going to mean nothing to anybody who's listening. But anyway, I remember there was a guy there, and I always used to see him coach people. And genuinely, it was as if they were the only two people in the room. And that to me was the perfect way to coach, because there could be a fucking fire, somebody running around topless. There could have been anything going on that didn't matter because he was just there with that person. And I think that shows a level of commitment to, that person is paying you for that hour or for whatever the service is. And I think, somebody who genuinely gives a shit is hard to beat, in my opinion.
Well, I think that helps with the consistency.
Did I do it?
I think you got 5 in there. Yeah. I think the consistency piece is important in there. If you have somebody that is invested in you, you're equally invested in yourself, right? And I think that's the big key difference here. A lot of people have trouble getting off, getting out of bed and getting to the gym and those types of things. But someone that can hold you accountable, to their check-ins, to making sure you're hitting your goals and objectives. And if you're not, you get an earful from Ben of why you're not, aren't hitting those. I got nailed on sleep a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "Listen, we just got done with the freaking podcast talking about sleep, and you had a shitty week in sleep." I'm like, "You're right. You're absolutely right." So I tried better last week. Now this week's not gonna be as good, but I try. It's having the accountability. I think for me, that has been such a game changer in success in my journey, right? And yesterday's another great example. I did Orange Theory in the morning, and then I got so busy with everything else. I normally do Orange Theory Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but because of the snowstorm we had here, it got canceled. So I did it Tuesday. It jacked up my whole schedule because I have like my calendar specifically planned to like to the T. So me having to go Orange Theory, I can't do Orange Theory then go right into lifting. I don't have the energy for that. I have to recoup and then do it in the afternoon. And so I couldn't do it in the afternoon because I had a bunch of stuff going on. So I did it at night, and I hate lifting at night. I hate it. I don't. If you listen to the Huberman Labs podcast, we almost got through the whole podcast. The Huberman Labs podcast, our bodies have this circadian rhythm, and circadian rhythm is our body's clock, internal clock. And usually at the nighttime, our body starts to wind down, our system so that we can start to prepare ourselves to sleep and to regenerate and all that other stuff. And so, to get the energy level that you need at night is very difficult. Luckily, as soon as I start sweating, my mind finally flips, and I was doing some great workouts yesterday, but I don't enjoy doing it. So, but I wasn't going to miss a workout. One, because, I'm never missing a workout. I'm just not doing it. Unless I'm hurt or something like that. But two, I knew Ben would give me shit afterwards too if I missed the workout. So it's like that accountability aspect, I think, is a big deal in a lot of this in your success in your journey when you're going through personal trainers. And, when we're talking about podcast topics, the reason why I wanted, I talked to Ben last week about this. I'm like, hey, we should really do a segment on personal trainers. And it wasn't to promote Ben and Ben's way of thinking or those types of things. It was really to explain, like, we look at fitness as something that you can Google. We look at fitness as something you can buy as a pill. We look at fitness as something that, you can accomplish through a diet. And the truth of the matter is that's all wrong, right? There's no magic pill. There's no magic diet. There's no, magic way of doing this thing. It's through hard work, consistency, and effort that this all comes through in this lifestyle. But if you listen to our previous podcast on habits, it's about building these small habits. And you can't build those habits, in my opinion, unless you either A, have figured out the right approach for yourself and the right structure to put in place, which takes a lot of work, or you work with a personal trainer to build those habits out so that you can start to be successful in this journey. And I've never been successful in this journey until I went through a personal trainer. And I'm not saying that you can't. I know a lot of folks that have been able to do this without a personal trainer. For me, this is the best solution.
I can't either. Like, full disclosure, I can't. Like, I need someone to be accountable to, and I should know. Like, I know all the things. I live and breathe it. I tell you guys all the fucking time. But I need a coach as well. Like, I need that accountability as well. And that's something that, people don't understand. But like, but you're a coach and you have a coach. And I'm like, yeah, of course I fucking do, because I'm a human as well. So like,
it's funny you mentioned that.
The accountability.
It's funny you mentioned that, because when I first started coaching with you, you had mentioned how you had another coach. I'm like, wait, my coach has a coach? I didn't even know that was a thing. Like that, but that, I mean, it makes perfect sense. We all have to be accountable in some way, shape, or form. And you're accountable for your tribe and your group that you work with on a regular basis. And you have somebody that holds you accountable to maintain what you practice and what you preach, right? And that's, I think, all the things, the checks and balances that make this a successful program with personal trainers is that, for one, do you go to a doctor that is morbidly obese and is telling you to go on a diet? No, like that's not, like, I'm not going to take that seriously, because you don't know how to, control yourself, but, you're physically fit. You practice what you preach, and you go through your struggles too, like, cause you're human. And, all of those things are things I think that make this a successful journey, because you go through the same struggles that we do. You've already been through the same struggles that we have, and you're learning every day. We're learning every day. You're learning from other people. It's this community effort to make this a successful approach. And I think, at least for me, if you have the ability to invest in a personal trainer, at least short term, just to get you under control, if you can do it long term, that's much more desirable. But it's something you should absolutely look at for the success in the journey out there.
Yeah, somebody asked me this morning, whenever I was talking to them about coming on work coaching, he was like, look, I hope you don't mind me asking, but why is the cost what it is? And, I'm fully aware that it's not cheap, and I totally get that. And my response is what I found over time is the more skin in the game, as it were, that you have as a client, the better a result that you would get. So if you're paying, $50 a month or whatever else, you're not going to be as committed as if you're paying more than that. And I have found that over time, that as my services have advanced and as my prices have increased, the people who were paying the higher price get a better result. And obviously that's what you want. You want to get the best result possible. And the funny thing about you saying about the coach, actually heard an analogy the other day about if you're a musician, say, and you're learning to play the guitar, whenever you start to learn, you play other people's music. So for me, from a coaching perspective, whenever I started coaching, I was coaching the way I was coached. So for me, my coaching needs to evolve. So that's why I still work with a coach, because their coaching evolves. So if you imagine being a musician, you play other people's music until you find a way that you can create and play your own music. And that's basically the way that I look at what I do. Like, I'll go to other coaches, I'll learn from them, whether it's courses, seminars, working with them on a one-to-one basis. And I think, like you said, I'm a human as well, and I need that level of accountability.
Well, one thing I'll say, Chris is another example. We'll close with this. When Chris first asked me about you and why you go with him and everything else, and told him the price, he's like, man, that seems kind of pricey. I'm like, dude, it's not cheap, but you're getting somebody that is literally dedicated to you all the time. Like, you can text at 2:00 in the morning, that you can go through your struggles and tribulations. You can do all this, that plans your food, that plans your, not the actual food you eat, but the nutritional aspects of what you should be eating, the workout routines, your check-in process, the data tracking, the once a week check-ins, the community that you get along with it. And he messaged me, I think it was like 3 or 4 months later. And he's like, man, Ben really needs to increase his prices, because he does so much shit for us that it's crazy. I can't even believe this. I'm like, dude, I know, right? It's like, so once you get down to it, you're like, holy shit, like this, this is awesome. Of what we get. It's the LeBron James, personal concierge service in all of this that I think has really helped out a lot. But I honestly, I go back down to the fundamentals of you care, right? And there's no price that is too much for that aspect of things to me. And that's, at Trusted Sec, we care about our customers. We care about their success as much as we do ourselves. And so our quality of work that we produce for our customers is because of our care for our customers, but we're also not the cheapest on the market, right? Because we hire senior level resources, we hire the best of the best, we put appropriate procedures. Like we have an entirely dedicated QA team, we have an entirely dedicated project management team, we have peer reviews and technical reviews, and we invested in programming so that we can be consistent in our reports. That's all additional overhead costs that we don't have to have as a company, but our product is better because of that, and it's the right thing to do for our customers, so we invest into that. So you have to look at it from a perspective of if you want that level of detail in your life to be successful, and you want all the tools necessary to be successful, it's something that you have to invest in yourself in, right? And I think that's just the mindset you have to have on personal trainers is that, again, if you can, I know there's people in different situations and stuff like that, are different levels of, from a monetary perspective, what they have from an income perspective and family and things like that. But one thing I'll say, an investment in yourself is not selfish. An investment in yourself is your success, longevity, that you're going to be there for your family, for your kids, for your loved ones, your significant other, your partners. Those are all things that are noble causes to invest in yourself to be successful in this journey and to change and create those habits that you need to be there for them. Yeah.
And I think the point for me is I don't want to work with loads of people. Do you know what I mean? You're talking about Jeff Nippert sells his program for $99. I'm sure there's thousands of people that pay for it. Whereas I don't want to work with thousands of people. I want to be able to answer everybody's messages, book calls whenever I need to, whatever needs to happen. And obviously I recognize that people are in different financial situations, and that's why I created the group-based model, that they don't get me as hands-on one-to-one. They get me in the group and they get me on the calls and they get me in the group chat, but not like calls like you and I would have in the one-to-one basis. So I try and create it that I have something for everybody, but it doesn't take away from A, what I'm doing for you guys, and B, my time. I can spread it amongst everything as much as I need to.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's a wrap. That was good.
Can I just point out as well, we hit 2,000 followers on Twitter today.
That's awesome. Hey, it's a celebration day.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Our numbers are going up on the podcast side. People are sharing us around. It's funny. I gotta head out, but my wife had recommended the podcast to somebody, and she's like, oh yeah, her and her daughter are gonna listen. I'm like, hey, just so you know, there's like F-bombs that we drop every so often. She's like, you say F-bombs? I'm like, yeah, sometimes, like not all the time, but she's like, oh gosh, okay. But no, that's awesome. 2,000 follower counts. Appreciate everybody for spreading the word of us and getting our names out there. Again, we do this to help other folks out with their journeys. And to help them be successful and give them the right tools. I just had somebody message me the other day, said, they did a marathon binge of all of them because there was it was so good on content that they cannot wait for the next week's release. So I guess we're doing something right there, and I really appreciate everybody listening in and tuning into us every week.
Yeah, for sure. I'll catch you next week.
Catch you next week. Later.
Cool.